We're holding at I guess let's recap 3 because we started 3 but didn't quite so inside the Mishna Berura im ein yodim asegis liknis yain lekiddush Halachik tzarchei seuda lechvei da laila lechvei da yom lekiddush hayom mutav sheyikne yain lekiddush halayla mima sheyachin tzarchei seuda oy mima sheyikne yain letzarech hayom. So if somebody only has enough money to buy wine for Kiddush, or alternatively, he can instead of buying the wine, he doesn't have enough for both, but he can only get the food for the meal, either for the night or for the day. Or he can get Kiddush just for the day. So he has enough. Basically, he has enough for 1 cup of wine. That's the basic deal over here. Or for some food. So he should better get wine for the Kiddush at night. Is preferable to get that rather than the needs for either meal or for the Kiddush of the day. This that we learned that the honor of the day is precedes the honor of the night, meaning that if you have money for nice things, you should focus them on the daytime meal rather than the nighttime meal. This is specifically with the other needs of the Suda, but not. It doesn't refer to Kiddush. However, when it comes to Kiddush, the honor of the night comes before the honor of the day, meaning he should then the Kiddush at night is preferred. He uses it for then rather than the Kiddush of the day. Mishna Berura Aleph. Zayin. I forgot. He's not starting in the beginning of the continues. It goes from by sim and not by sif. Why? So the Mishnah Berura explains that Kiddush is a mitzvah, is a positive mitzvah, the Iraisa from the Torah, right? However, to prepare the needs of the meal, that comes from another mitzvah of Einig Shabbos, of enjoyment of Shabbos, which this is comes from the Navi, from the prophets, like it says, V'karasal Shabbos Einig, and you should call Shabbos pleasure. And even though, like we said before, you can technically fulfill the mitzvah of the Torah obligation of Kiddush by just through the words, and like we said, the cup of wine part is comes from a Divrei Seifrim, comes from the words of the rabbis. But still, since the whole main thing of Kiddush is actually from the Torah, so even the wine that's associated with it is gains more important, even though the wine part technically is from the sages. However, the Achronim, they agree that they all agree that this is specifically when when you have the bread already, meaning you already have not just the bread, not just for the night, but the bread for the day and the night. But if he doesn't have challah to make a mitzi on, better he gets bread and makes the kiddush on the bread. Because he also has an obligation to eat the bread, right? To make a suda, to make a meal with bread in the night and in the day. And therefore, if he can only get bread, he should first of all get bread. Once he has bread, then this whole question comes. And now after the bread, I only have enough for 1 cup of wine or for food for either thing. So then the first important thing is to get the wine for the night, following by wine for the day, and then food for the day, and then food for the night. Because by food and wine, it's the opposite way around. By the food, it's better to focus it by the day. And by Kiddush, it's the night is more important.
How do you make Kiddush on bread?
You make just like you do on wine, only you make a hamaitzi lechem in a aretz instead of a hagafen. You do it in the same exact order.
And you wash beforehand. You make the kiddush, except you say that. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, and you would yeah.
Well, anyway, then you'd have to wash before you make the kiddush on the bread.
Yeah,
obviously.
And you say hamaitzi, and you say baruch atah, what is it? Asher Shan Mitzvah Ratzabanu, etc.
The only thing I think, wait a minute, the only thing I've ever seen close to that is one time Rabbi Flipko, Alav Shalom, he came down to the beginner's minion at Shira Torah like 30 years ago, and he came down to speak, and in the middle of him speaking, that's when Simcha Varan, did you know him? Simcha Varan started the class. And then Rabbi Pupko spoke. He started to cough, and he needed a drink, and he didn't make kiddush yet. So they got him a glass of water, and he made kiddush on the H2O.
That I'm not sure of. I've never heard of that.
I saw him do it though. I guess he needed a drink of water, and he wasn't going to say shehakol without making kiddush, so he made kiddush but said shehakol.
I'm not sure of that, because generally speaking, you can make kiddush on either bread or wine. In other words, if you need a shehakol, you would usually, now I don't know exactly how that unfolded. And remember, each situation there's often things that happen there that we don't realize happened. But I would, in other words, in that case, you would just make a shehakol without kiddush, because you can't make kiddush on water, and you would just make a shehakol and drink it, because if an older person is coughing and needs it, you can drink without kiddush.
Well,
I think in a later,
I wouldn't even make it without shehakol.
I watched them do it. I'll never forget it.
Anyway, but I'm saying it could be that something else happened behind the scenes that was missed. In either case, so this is the order in which you would do it. So first would come bread is first, the first thing for both the night and the day. I assume for the night first, since Kiddush Halayla Kaidem, since the Kiddush of the night is more important. Let's say you could only afford enough bread for one. I would assume you would get the bread for the night to be able to make Kiddush on the bread. After that, you would get bread for the day. After that, you would get wine for the night and wine for the day. But then when it comes to the food, you would first get food for the day and then food for the night, because it's only with Kiddush that the night comes first, because of the Torah obligation nature of Kiddush. Okay, so so the possibly with that. And if he has Kiddush for the night, but he does not have enough for Kiddush for the day, even though the honor of the day is more important than the.
What happened?
Interesting. It would 1 second. So it sounds like no. It sounds like first you would get food for the day, and then and only then kiddush for the day. The kiddush of the day wouldn't be more important when it comes, because the kiddush of the day is not a Torah thing, whereas the food for the day comes from the prophets. So that's actually more important. Mikol Makim Avshir the Leib pass, but maybe it's enough for him with bread. In other words, so he can get just bread for the day, and he should get. Even so, he should get kiddush for the day before getting other things for the meal, because technically, even though it's true that the honor of the day when it comes to food is more important, however, it's being that technically with the bread he also fulfills the obligation of einig karasa, that you should call Shabbos pleasure. So he should get wine before he gets other things. Give me just 1 second. Let me run up and grab my cord. I'm just realizing my my kids have ran my battery down. 1 second.
Happens.
Okay, I'm plugging this in. It was there. And I think I have an empty plug right here. Actually, I'm going to plug it in this side here. I'll plug it in over here better. Straight into the wall. Okay. All right, we're charging. Beautiful. What was he saying there? Better than buy wine. See? So better he should buy the one from night than that he should get the wine for the day. Hainu l'tzayich kiddush hayom, meaning for the needs of kiddush for the day. He's not talking about wine just for the for that you're going to drink for pleasure during the meal. He's talking about the kiddush. Like we said before, that the kiddush of the night is its main thing is a Torah. It comes from the Torah obligation of Zocher, as Yom Shabbos Zakati. Remember the Shabbos to make it holy. The kiddush hayom rak midrabanan, whereas kiddush during the day is from the sages. The af al gav, so obviously something that's a direct Torah obligation takes precedence over something that is an obligation from the sages. The af al gav the balayla yuchal lemer brikas kiddush arifta, even though in the night technically he could say kiddush on bread. Uvayim kishaloi yiloi al malakavish yishar b'li kiddush. And then and in the day when he won't have on what to make kiddush, he'll remain without kiddush. Mikol malkum cave the malkum she's yain in mekatz narif to the laila difa. Even so, he should make the kiddush on the wine, because and any time you have wine, you don't make kiddush on the bread. You rather make the kiddush on the wine. So even if this will leave him without kiddush for the day, even so he should make the kiddush on the wine at night and make hametzi, and then in the day will be what will be. Right, that we learned that in the Gemara that the honor of the day comes before the honor of the night. But this is specifically in the other needs of the meal, not when it comes to kiddush. So the Mishna Berura explains, Kigayin, for example, like he has a little bit of delicacies. So that it's better that he leaves them for the needs of the day. And in the Yam Shel Shlema, he what was the word he scorns them? Yehuda, what was it? He scorns them or something like that.
He scores. The Yam Shel Shlema scores those. Score like a score, like you scored a goal, but same word, but it's means to rebuke.
Right, so he rebukes them on people who are not careful about this, meaning who are not careful about focusing more of their delicacies on the day rather than the night. And just the opposite, they add more on the by the night. They focus on the night in terms of the delicacies. So so it comes before the honor of the day. So meaning that the nighttime kiddush comes before both the needs of the meal of the day and also of the wine of the day, like I said before. Dalit. Fourth paragraph. Asur litayim klum k'may kaddish. It is prohibited to taste anything before making kiddush. Afilu mayim, even water. And even somebody who began eating or drinking before it became Shabbos, when it's still day, before Shabbos fell, he needs to stop. Shaped is mappa, that he puts out a tablecloth. That meaning on the bread, as well as by the night that we don't have food open on the table, because of Mikar the Shabbos. So there's a special thing that by the night meal you don't, when you're making on the kiddush and hametz, you don't have food on the table before that. Or alternatively, you have the food. If there's food on the table, it's covered over with something. So he does that. He puts out a tablecloth, meaning on top of the food and on the bread, on the kaddish, and he makes kiddush. Now, what if they were drinking wine beforehand, meaning before Shabbos they're drinking wine? So then he only makes kiddush itself, without saying agafen, since you're already drinking wine, so you don't have to make a bayir pi agafen on the kiddush wine, but rather you would just go right into the birchas mekadesh Shabbos, into the blessing of for Shabbos. And then, like the regular seder, he would go into the bracha on the bread. But if he doesn't have wine, so meaning same situation, but not wine. They weren't drinking. He doesn't have any wine, so they were eating bread, and it was before Shabbos. Okay, so he's eating bread already, and now it becomes Shabbos. So he should make kiddush on the bread, and the same thing like we said by the wine, that since he's already eating the bread and he already made a mitzi on the bread, he wouldn't need to make a new mitzi. Rather, same thing. He would just go straight into the he would just make kiddush on it, and then eat from the bread. And needless to say, he wouldn't make a mitzi after that because he's making kiddush on the mitzi. So that's serving both as his kiddush as well as his establishing the meal. V'yesh emrim, and some say she'av kishemekadish al hayayin. Some say that even if he is in that situation, let's say he has wine, and he's eating, and they're eating bread, right? So but now he makes kiddush in between, and now he has wine, so he's going to make kiddush on the wine, and then he's going to go to make a meal. So he would not make another hamaitzi on the meal.
Oh, so even if you might think you made an interruption with a bayir pi agafen on the wine,
right?
But you had previously washed hamaitzi. You don't make a new hamaitzi when eating bread after making kiddush on wine.
Correct.
It does not interrupt the hamaitzi you made.
Right. So you wouldn't have to go and make another hamaitzi.
Got it.
Which we'll see. There's a machlekes, I believe, later in terms of when it's the other way around. If you what's it called? There's a whole interesting thing about I think the next one. Yeah, we'll see anyways over there. Dalid Yud Aleph, Mishna Yud Aleph, Asur Litaim V'zehu Rak Isud Rabbanon. This is a rabbinical prohibition. Vatam, the reason, Kivon the Chiyuv Shel HaKiddush Chol Olav Miyod B'Knisa Shabbos, being that the obligation for Kiddush falls on him the moment Shabbos enters. Va'afilu like Kibbul Olav Shabbos Behedye, even if he did not take on Shabbos on himself specifically. The Kevin Shenasa Sveik HaSheich Melech Olav Shabbos, that once it becomes the time where it's not clear if it's day or night, so at that point it's automatically, we have to assume that it's night already and it's Shabbos already. So automatically all the obligations of Shabbos begin at that point. Ve'im kibul of Shabbos, but if he accepted upon himself Shabbos, afilu daim yaim gadol din hachi. That if he accepted on himself Shabbos, right, then it's actually even more stringent, really. Why? Because if it's the time, right? If it's the time that it's a doubt, is it night yet? Is it not night yet? So so we're keeping Shabbos because of the doubt. And a doubt for any Torah thing, you go lahachmer, you go to stringent. In this case, if you specifically accepted Shabbos on yourself, it's not a doubt of Shabbos. It's totally 100% Shabbos for you without any question. So how much more so once somebody accepts Shabbos on themselves, that even more so they should not they have immediately the obligations that come with Shabbos, including Kiddush, and that he should not eat or drink anything before Kiddush. Kaidim shi Kaddish, before he makes, he shouldn't do it. He shouldn't eat or drink anything before he makes Kiddush. Va'afilu, this is Mishna Yud Beis. Va'afilu ein lo elokais echad. And even if he only has one cup, Yikadish alav, he should make Kiddush on it. And when it comes to benching, he shouldn't do the benching without a cup of wine. Hainu afilu lemandis vidale birchas hamazon to una case. So even according to those that hold that birchas hamazon, you're required to do over a cup of wine, as is discussed earlier in 182, paragraph 2. And he should not eat before he makes kiddush. Afilu mayim, even water. V'shari lirchaitz piv b'mayim, says the Mishna Berura. And this comes from Achreinim that he could you can rinse your mouth with water. Kevon the einim mekabel anos te'ima, because he's not having in mind to have any pleasure from the tasting of the water. Rather, he's just doing it to clean his mouth. Tzarich lahafsik. So he said that even if he was already eating before and then it became Shabbos, he has to stop. Even though when he started eating, he did so with permission, meaning with no in a permissible way. So it's different here that the kiddush is connected to the meal. And when possible, in the first place, the takana, the what do you say takana, like they made the rule enacted a ruling that that you make kiddush before the meal and in the place of the meal. So what does that have to do with tzarich lahafsik, that he has to stop?
Well,
this comes from the Magen Avram, by the way. This thing that that is different about.
So first of all, there's a little note here that brings up Reish Lamed Hey in Sifkat 21. So section 235, subsection 21, that in general, when you begin a meal, you're allowed to do so, you don't then have to interrupt said meal to make a mitzvah whose time has arrived. You can wait until you finish your meal. But by here, even though it's stressing.
So using an example, you started eating a meal, and now it became time for menorah, to light menorah, let's say. So you don't have to, being that you began the meal before the obligation was there, you're not required to stop your meal and go there. And here, obviously, like you said, is different. And why? Because
So now he's saying, because Kiddush is connected to eating of said meal. So Kiddush is always connected to the meal. You're supposed to make it by the meal and wherever you're going to eat the meal. So you're not really interrupting your meal to make Kiddush. It's not a separate thing.
Right. So it's not like Menorah. It's not like Menorah, that Menorah has no connection to a meal of any sort. In this case, there's an intrinsic connection basically, and therefore he has to stop,
if you
make Kiddush and then give you the meal.
You think about hefsek with brachas, with regards to benching. If you get up and walk around your house, you move through too many rooms, you wait too long until you bench. There's different types of hefsek.
Right.
And like after we wash, everyone's very careful not to speak. The problem is there's other types of hefsek too. Time, if you wait too long, that's also not allowed. Just as bad as speaking. Walking around multiple rooms, also a problem. Doing things that have nothing to do with the challah. So even, but quick, let me make the salad while everyone else washes for hamaitzi. It's not really for the hamaitzi, unless it's a salad for the hamaitzi, maybe a dip, fine, but it's problematic. Okay, that has to do with the meal at least, fine. But there's also, just for saying an after bracha, to interrupt the middle of your meal to go do another activity, it's not connected to your meal. I want to go do something else. It's not really allowed.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
Here, it's fine because it's part of them. It's fine. It's for them.
Right. So rather he should stop and do what? And put a cloth, to cover the bread till after Kiddush. But after that he'll take it off. This is the asa suda hashtal the kara de Shabbat. So after that he will take it off to reveal the bread, because the suda is now for the what, how do you call it, the valuableness,
honor of Shabbos.
Yeah, the honor of Shabbos. You're right, but specifically he's talking about this is the idea that you cover, that when you're making Kiddush you cover the food, and the reason is you cover the Shabbos.
Right.
So that's why he's saying the reason he would cover it, you would cover you would now cover the bread, and as well as actually any other food that you have that's on the table, is because of the honor of Shabbos, that this is something that's specific to Friday night.
That's for the Shabbos.
Yeah. Even if he didn't sit down yet to eat, gam kein din hachi, it is also the din, like this. Lisas mapa beis kiddush, that covering the bread with the cloth in time of kiddush. Like we'll see later in paragraph 9 below. Ella de kamash malam bazed avshu beemtzach yilosei dai beplisas mapa. But over here he's just adding that even though he's already in middle of eating, it's also just like there. It's enough that he just covers it. He doesn't have to remove it from the table, but rather just covering it is good. Okay, so let's see. So he said that if they were drinking wine already, then he only makes Kiddush, but he doesn't make the Hagafen because he already made the Hagafen part of it. So he doesn't need to make another Hagafen, so he would just take a cup of wine and make the Kiddush part of it. The cave on the Beirech Kvar b'Seicha Seuda b'Tchil Shtiyasei, that since he already made the bracha during the meal in the beginning of when he started to drink the wine, Shuv ein tzarich levarich ata be'brei gafen. He doesn't have to go again and make another brei gafen. Kedem HaKiddush, before making the bracha of Kiddush, Mkavish Shabbos. V'hu hadin, and this is from the Magen Avram. Actually, the coming up parts in Magen Avram. V'hu hadin she'ein tzarich levarich ala yayin she'b'seicha seuda. This is also the same thing, that he does not have to make a bracha on the wine in middle of the meal, right? Let's say you made Kiddush, and now you're going to go drink more wine during the meal. Because there's no lapse of
interruption.
Of intention, of awareness
removing your focus.
The way it works is if you have a hesed das, if you, in other words, like you were saying before, if you want to do something else, when it comes to brachas, if you want to do something else, now it creates a problem. Do you have to say another bracha? So in this case, the Magen Avraham says that you do not have to go and make another bracha because it's all part of the same thing, and it's not considered a lapse of intent. And then after this, so we say that okay, he's drinking wine before Shabbos. Now it becomes Shabbos. So he would now interestingly, he didn't bring Ma'ariv up in this whole thing.
Right. Still focused on the food aspect. Maybe we'll get a Ma'ariv later.
Because we get it from if you get up and daven Ma'ariv, which you would usually do first, then
in many cases, no, we actually usually say not to do that. You save Ma'ariv till afterwards.
You would do, in other words, you do Ma'ariv after Kiddush because you're already sitting down. You're already there.
The daven Ma'ariv's taka making a hefsek in the middle of the meal.
Right, you're making a hefsek in the middle of the thing, which is
why.
Which is a very good reason to not drink wine right before Shabbos.
By though, when there's a Purim Mashulish, these halakas are very apropos. This is where most of the stuff comes
you have this food going into the next. So what order would you do it in? Yeah.
You cover the challah, you make the kiddush, you continue, and you do one benching at the end it covers everything. And then afterwards, everyone's already had a full meal, and they're good and shikr with how much wine they've drank, and then they're davening. Usually, it's the best Kabbalah Shabbos Ma'ariv you'll ever daven in your life.
Or at least it sounds like it.
Well, no one's gonna remember.
It feels like it anyway. Yeah. Okay, so then right? So we say that we said already he doesn't make a new bracha on the wine. He just makes the bracha on the kiddush bracha, and then he makes a maitzi. Hainu kishebal ligmer achar kach sudasei mevarich birchas hamaitzi mechadosh. So he would make a new hamaitzi. Now remember, this later we're talking about a different scenario. We're talking about when he didn't have wine, he only had bread. And he's making the kiddush on the bread also, so that's different. In that case also he would make another. In that case he would not make another bracha on meitzim. In this case that he made kiddush on the wine, he would make another bracha on meitzim. The that he does not fulfill his obligation from the hameitzi that he made in the beginning of the seudah. Because this kiddush that he had to make in middle is because he's not allowed to eat until after he makes kiddush. So therefore, obviously, it automatically it comprises a hesed hadas. Then automatically, there's a lapse of intent because not only did he stop eating, he couldn't eat if he wanted to. Ze heavy hefsek. That's a pause. Or how do you call it? What's the better word for a hefsek? Not a pause, but a hard stop. Vizakman. What's a better word for hefsek?
Separation, a distinction.
It's like a pause, but it means like
interruption.
Interruption. There we go. That's the word. Therefore, he must make another bracha hamaitzi on the bread. Birchas hamazon, and rak pam achas b'sefer suda. But birchas hamazon, the blessing after the meal, he only makes once at the end of the meal. He does not make bench and then make kiddush and then make hamaitzi again. Rather, he just makes kiddush, makes a new hamaitzi without benching on the prior hamaitzi, and then he makes a hamaitzi a benching at the end to include both hamaitzis. Where by contrast in the other case that we brought, where he does not have kiddush and he's making the kiddush on the bread, that the time that when he makes the hamaitzi, the hamaitzi is coming before he said the bracha of kiddush, right? Because in this case it wouldn't be like, because in the case when you have wine and you're making kiddush, so first you make the kiddush, then you make the bracha hamaitzi. The kiddush was already a hefsek, was an interruption. So now you need a new hamaitzi. In this case, you're making the hamaitzi. You already made the hamaitzi. and now you're going and making the kiddush after the bracha, so it's not a hefsek. And there was still no interruption. That because of this he would have to make a second bracha. Therefore, in that situation where the kiddush was not on wine in between, it's not an interruption, and according to all the to everybody, all the achenim, you would not have to make another. You do not make another bracha on the bread. So he says, let's see, this is going by that some say that even in the case where you make the kiddush on wine, you still don't make a hametzi. Even if you make kiddush on wine, in between, you would not make a new hametzi. The sviro lei the kiddush lehavi hefsek, that they hold that kiddush is not an interruption. V'chein the sveik brachas lahakil yesh just b'kayesh aimrim, and being that when there's a doubt when it comes to a bracha, being that a bracha, the rule is by a Torah obligation, a doubt we go just lahachmir, to stringency, and when it's a rabbinical obligation, we go to leniency. And since a bracha is a rabbinical obligation, we go to leniency. Now, this wouldn't necessarily apply to kiddush actually, because kiddush itself, there is the element, like we had the whole discussion before. I guess it would depend if you specifically had in mind to make to accept it in the davening one. But let's just go with the assumption that you did not. Then your kiddush that you're making is actually fulfills your Torah obligation. And so in the case of the bracha of kiddush itself, being that it's from the Torah obligation of Zachar Siyam Shabbos L'Kachi, it wouldn't be that way. However, the brachas that he's making on bread, this is a rabbinical obligation, and therefore, if we're not sure if he should say it or not, in this case, the doubt coming because some poskim hold that you do, and some poskim hold that you don't. So you would go with the ones with the more lenient opinion, and therefore the proper thing to do would be to go like this second opinion that says you should not make the bracha, being that by brachas we go lenient. Yeah. Hey, Shnaim Shoyushaisim, two people that were drinking. The Amru Bayu and the Kaddish Kiddush Hayom, and he said, "Let us make Kiddush for the Shabbos day." It's actually talking about at night, but it means Kiddush Hayom just means the Kiddush that is associated with the day. Nesar Aleim Lishtais Achi Kachu. They're not allowed to continue drinking until they made Kiddush. So let's go down in the Mishna Berura on that. Meaning it's still daytime. Meaning it's before Shabbos still, and they say let's make Kiddush. The ilu b'sfeik hashecha, the culture came b'vadi hashecha, that if we're talking about when it's in the time that it's questionable if it's night yet, and how much more so if it's the time that it's certainly night already. Then automatically they would already not be allowed to eat or drink. They wouldn't have to say, "Come, let's make Kiddush." So the Mishnah Berura points out this is obviously talking about before the time came that obligates you. If they said, let's make Kiddush, they now they now have obligated themselves in making Kiddush, and they cannot eat or drink further. That they now obligated themselves to saying this. And if they want to go, it's amazing how you're not allowed to do this. But he says, but if they wanted to anyways, even though they're not allowed to. So then what do you do? You have to first go and make the bracha beir pri hagafen. Ve'achar kach yishtu. They need to first make, which it's a very funny situation actually, because he's saying until you make kiddush, you're not allowed to drink more, to keep drinking. You can't keep drinking wine. They're drinking, and clearly they're drinking wine because he talks about they have to go and bench beir pri hagafen.
Right.
So if they want to, despite this, what would they do? Then you have to make another bracha. You have to make another bracha hagafen first. Now the reason that's funny is you're already holding the cup. You already just made a beir pri hagafen. Why not just say the kiddush? Like you're already there. It's not like you have to do something else. You're already holding the cup. You already made the hagafen, so make the kiddush already. What's the problem here? Anyway, but this is the situation. And then they should drink. So the imrotzu v'chulu hatam. What's the reason? The Mishna Berura says chaf aleph. When it comes to the Magen Avram, the aschu they tau melishtes eid kidim kiddush, that now they removed their, it was the hesach hadas. They removed their intention from it. So they made an interruption. Why? But because they said let's make kiddush. So now they're obligated to kiddush. Now it's like an interruption. Similarly to how somebody says havlon v'nunvarich, right? Rabbi Saim mentioned, right? Gentlemen, let us come make a bracha or whatever. The tzarech hasheisa achakach la'achzul levarich. But somebody who wants to drink after that has to go back and make another bracha. Because you just announced your intent to bench, so obviously your intention that was your intention. So your intention changed from the prior intention, and so similarly here, since he said, "Come, let's make kiddush." So since even though later he decided, no, I'm just going to keep drinking, but the fact that they said, "Come, let's make kiddush," you can almost see that happening. Like, guys, come, let's make kiddush. Wait 1 second. And it's interesting that the Shulchan Aruch that the Mechaber make sure to address these guys, like, okay, you're going to do what you're not even supposed to do, and I'm still going to make sure that you can do that in the best way possible with breaking the least amount of things. So in that case of benching, you have to go back and make the bracha. Mikol mokim al case shel kiddush das Magen Avram she'ein tzarich levarich beir pri hagafen. That in other, the Magen Avram holds that if you said this and you're going to go, so on the one hand, if you're going to go and continue just drinking wine, right, not making kiddush, you have to make a hagafen. However, if you're making kiddush, you do not have to make the hagafen. And he's yaitze with the bracha he made before drinking. Why? Because when you said, "Come, let's make kiddush," you took your mind off any cup of wine, but not the cup of wine you're going to make kiddush with. That wine you didn't take your mind off of. That one, there's no interruption, because what was your interruption for other wine? Is you said, "Come, let's make kiddush," which shows that you have a mind to make kiddush. So the cup of wine for kiddush you did not have an interruption for, so that you would not make a hagafen. But if you decide not to make kiddush and instead you're going to do what you're not supposed to and go drink more, on that wine you took your mind off of because you said, "Come, let's make kiddush." So then, so there you would have to make another baby hagafen, which you can see in this sugya why it's a good idea just not to do any of this, do it the right way, and finished.
Man, but say there, yeah, life happens.
Can you imagine if you can't remember the details, right? And you're sitting there and you have a cup of wine, you have wine in front of you, and you dafka want to keep drinking and not make kiddush. So now let's look in the Shulchan Aruch what way we should do when we do the wrong thing, how we should do that. V'chein nira the ein tzarich levarich gam kein ala yain sheyishta achar keshel kiddush. And furthermore, it seems, and this is from Eliyazuta, Furthermore, it would seem that you would not only would you not make another hagafen on the kiddush that you're going to make, but you also then would not make another hagafen on the wine that you're going to drink after kiddush. Because by saying let's make kiddush, the only wine that you removed your intention from was any wine that you're gonna drink before kiddush, since you said let's make kiddush. But since you're having in mind the wine from kiddush, you're also automatically having in mind the wine that's going to come after the kiddush. That's during the seudah. So the only wine you would have to make a hagafen for is if you would decide to continue drinking wine without making kiddush. But the wine of kiddush you do not have to, and the wine that's after kiddush during the meal you also don't have to, because that intention for that wine is included in the intention for kiddush. And since there are many opinions regarding these laws, and they're very complicated, how do you say a bal nefesh, a soulful person?
Yeah, I mean, he just recites it as a God-fearing person. But
yeah, that works.
I always felt it's not that short, but someone who takes ownership of their soul.
Oh, like a baal is like a master, a master of their soul.
Because what does it mean, bal nefesh? Everyone's a bal nefesh. Everyone has a soul.
Right,
I own a soul.
Right.
I have a soul. What's make this? I take ownership of it. Meaning, so I'm saying my soul matters to me. It's not, I have a soul, whatever. No, but I'm going to be careful on my soul, wanting to keep my soul healthy.
Another way you could say it is anyone who controls his soul. Meaning, what's a baal? A baal means I control. Meaning. There's the thing that's subservient, and there's what it's serving. The baal is the master. So anyone who's a master of the soul, like you're in control of yourself. You have self-control.
I can control my soul. I can keep it from going out, and keep it in, and release its powers automatically. No, that's not up to me.
No, but your soul has keiches. What do you mean? But you control your keiches hanefesh. There's powers of the soul.
Fine, because the soul is putting that into the goof.
Right. So the keiches, and there's the levushim of the nefesh, right? So those are all, in other words, those all come to. So you're not. There's certain things you don't connect to your soul. You didn't create your own soul. You're not putting in your body, but you do control. Your soul.
I feel like
actions of halakha, you control.
I don't know. I'm not so sure on the control thing. I have to think about it more, because. We don't control our souls. It's a chelik kamal. I mean,
no, that's we don't control. We don't control. Fine, but that's like saying we don't control our body. You didn't create your own body. You determine when your body gets old and when it gets young and when it gets sick and when it doesn't. Also, not, but you control. But you control what your hand is doing right now.
I can control. Yes, I can control limbs of my body, but I can't control. I can't just with my brain, just tell my body. Send the white blood cells this way and the red blood cells that way. No, that's going to happen with or without my consent.
Not necessarily. That happens
sometimes,
and very often that does happen that actually also happens from messages from your brain. And there's people who with intense concentration can like do weird things like that, like slow down their heart. I don't know about red blood cells or whatever, but
I'm not saying it's not possible. What I'm saying is yes, they're tzaddikim who are able to control their
but you
soul.
You don't control your body also, if that's the case, because you don't control everything with to do with your body.
100%. The average person does not control every cell of their body, the operation of their body.
Fine. So the average person also does not control every part of his soul. But you do have
But a bal nefesh is not talking about somebody.
Wait, what's your body? What's your body? Your body is sachakel is a clothing. It's actually when you're deciding to do something, it's not your body deciding to do something. It's not even your brain deciding to do something. It's you deciding. It's your soul. So you for sure have your bechira chavshis. Your free choice means that you have control over the choices that your soul makes. The soul is not this abstract thing that just enlivens.
Hold on. Yes, control over choices is very different than saying I have control over the entity that is my soul.
What do you mean? You have control over the powers of your soul. The things that your soul does. The things that your soul.
The outcome of my neshama, the teitzah of my neshama is not the ikar of my neshama. I'm not the Baal Shem Tov that I can control and just have my soul and I can fly
Right.
up to the highest Shemayim.
He didn't say you're a Baal Yechida. He didn't say you're a Baal Yechida. He said Baal Nefesh, like your Keiches HaNefesh. There's an element of your soul that you control.
Interesting diuk.
There's an element of your soul. Yeah, I know, right? I can almost see
the level of soul that is most invested in the goof. That's interesting.
But there is a level of soul that you can. As a matter of fact, there's a level of soul that you control. There's 100%. There's a level of soul that you control. And in fact, again, your body is only a garment to that. When it's me making a decision, it's a nefesh thing. It's not my body making a decision. It's not my brain did something to you. It's not my body did something to you. It's I did something to you. I decided. Who's I decided? It means I decided, and I can use the keiches of my nefesh. I can use the powers of my soul in certain ways. Not only that, we're supposed to refine the powers of our soul, and we have again, true. We're not talking on a level of yechida here, but that's Baal Nefesh. And anyway, we're b'chlal making the yukim that aren't necessarily.
I think we might have to Hill and Shammai this. We might have to Hill and Shammai this because I hear what you're saying, but I still think it's better to say it as I'm taking ownership of my soul, meaning I'm going to take the responsibility to take care of it properly, and that's why
it's the same. It's the same difference. Why would you mean ownership of your soul? Since when do you own your soul? You can take ownership of your body. No, so also clearly there's an element of your soul. So you're saying the same thing. There's an element of your soul clearly that you have some investment in.
Someone gives me a gift of for example, a pet.
Yeah,
there's difference between me taking ownership and responsibility for it to take care of it, than me saying that I can control, that I have absolute control.
I would say just the opposite, because a pet you have less control over than you have over yourself.
That's what I'm saying. So
you're influencing. No, but you yourself, you have to. As a matter of fact, I'll give you absolute proof to it.
Well,
I'll give you absolute proof.
Right there.
Absolute proof is the first line of Tanya.
Then what is this?
Absolute proof. Wait, the absolute.
Why bring this turn? Why would this phrase exist in halacha? If that's
what do you mean? It's relevant, but look, what's the first thing they do? What's the first line of Tanya? Mashbir say they make the sole promise: be a tzaddik and don't be a rasha. What do you mean? But when they're making that sole promise, why am I the one that's responsible to keep that promise? Because I am that same soul that came down. Anywho, I don't think that's the direction that usually the discussion of this Mishna Berura takes, because in the halachic sense, in its simplest form, he's just saying those who want to be a good boy. But it is important to note that for example, it's not just a matter of the Torah, but even when in theory when the Chafetz Chaim makes a diuk and says something a certain way, it's not just it's not just whatever he happened to use that. These are people who are extremely careful with their words, so it's valuable to discuss. But it's also valuable to remember that the main thing he's saying is be a good boy. Anyone who's a good boy will avoid these things because they're very complicated, and you don't want to get involved in it, and it's too complicated. So that's his basic point there.
Base.
So where are we in?
Chav base.
Chav base, yeah.
So
even though you're not allowed to do this, right? So he's saying if somebody will want to do it, even though you're not allowed to, this is how you'd have to do it. Meaning, why are they not allowed to do it? Because it's already the holiness of Shabbos they're already obligated in. Because of Ataz, the Taz writes, the Chishalei Amru Bayin Kadesh, Ella Shehechshich. Now, the Taz writes that if they did not say, didn't
say anything.
Right? No, we were talking about before, like the Mishna said before, Dafka, it was not dark yet. And they said this. Now, the Taz is bringing the opposite thing, right? They didn't say nothing, but it became dark. If if they want to go back and drink, they do not have to go back and make a bracha.
Even though it's before Kiddush.
Right. Why? After Asr and Machmashu Kedim Kiddush. Because even though it's Asr, the Taz holds that it's not the fact that they became obligated in Kiddush that creates interruption. The interruption is you said, let's make Kiddush. And that shows that your intention was to make Kiddush. And since you just said by your own words, your intention is to make Kiddush, you just now automatically made an interruption between, like a mental interruption between any wine that precedes Kiddush now. Whereas if it became Shabbos, and now it's even more so. It's even more so also to make Kiddush. No, it's not even more so. Only if it's once it's dark completely, it's more so. Because it's actually when you say let's make Kiddush and it falls on yourself, it becomes absolute Shabbos. But let's say it becomes here absolute Shabbos, mamish time wise. So you would think for sure it would be a hefsek. No, because the hefsek, the Taz says, was not created by it becoming Shabbos. Because look, the fact is either way I'm doing something usher. I'm doing something I'm not allowed to do. It's not the fact that I'm doing something. It's not like what do you call it, like a knas, like a fine that since you're doing what you're not supposed to do, you're gonna have to make have to make a bracha. No, rather the fact that you said Bayin Kaddish shows that your intention was to make Kiddush. Whereas the other way around, no, you're just a naughty boy, and it became Shabbos, and you're gonna keep drinking wine without making Kiddush. At the same time, though, your intention was to do that. You're a naughty boy, and that was your intention. So this does not interrupt the intent of your original bracha, which is a beautiful. By the way, it's a beautiful thing. It's like this guy, like he's so naughty. He's gonna keep drinking on Shabbos, right? Even though it's prohibited to do so. At the same time, I'm not gonna make my brachas wrong. So it's a beautiful assumption that the Shulchan Aruch and Bechlal, this discussion has here, is that what just because somebody is doing what he's not supposed to on something, what you're gonna assume that he's a bad boy and he does everything like he's not supposed to. There's still going with the assumption that this person is gonna want to make sure that they're doing the bracha the right way. A beautiful thing, no?
Okay.
Okay, so now the Ramah says, Adam shechachach lekadish ad la'achar shebeirach, a person that forgets to make Kiddush until after he makes a birchas hamaitzi, v'nizkar keidim she'achal, and he remembers before he ate. So he made the bracha hamaitzi lechem min haaretz. He's about to eat. He didn't eat yet. That's a crucial point that he did not eat yet. So then, what's he gonna do? He should yikadish al pas. He should make the kiddush on the bread. So let's say he said, I guess we'll continue going until Chaim gets on.
Yeah.
So he remembers before he makes the bracha. He didn't make kiddush. He should continue Baruch Atah Hashem, etc., Mekadish Shabbos, and make the kiddush on the bread. After that, he should eat. And then he eats just like you would regularly by making a kiddush by thing. But by Havdalah, he should not do that. He should take a bite from the bread because he just made Hametz Lechem Na'aretz. Because you cannot make Havdalah on bread. By the way, Reb Levi Chaim will be on shortly. This is the preceding shir. Once Chaim gets on, we'll log off. But since I don't see Chaim yet, we'll just continue going until Chaim gets on.
Awesome, Rabbi.
All right. So he should eat first, and then he makes Havdalah, because Havdalah you can't make on bread, right? Mishna Berura. Which one are we have? Gimel, right?
Before he begins.
Yeah, Hainu Kedim Shatam Plus Hamaitzi, meaning before, so he made the bracha Hamaitzi, but he didn't taste it yet. He didn't put it in his mouth yet. Because once he eats the bread already, at that point, so then just go back and you already took the bite out of it. So then, why make kiddush on the bread? You just go like you would. You forgot to make kiddush on wine. You forgot to make kiddush. So now go make kiddush on the wine. Or on the other hand, where if he did not take a bite yet, then he would make the kiddush on the bread. Even though he has wine that he can make kiddush on. Because if not, right, if he made the bracha hamaitzi and now he's going to make kiddush, he just made an interruption between the bracha of hamaitzi and eating bread, which you're not allowed to do. However, he has to bring more. He has to bring an additional lechem Mishna now. So I just made a hamaitzi. I ate a piece of bread, right? And now I have to make another kiddush on wine. But now I have to make a new lechem Mishna. I have to bring new challah. And this is not called an interruption. Because that's part of the needs of the soda. Like before in 167, Sif 4, paragraph 6. So Yikadish ala pas, right? So we say that if he didn't eat yet, he should make the kiddush on the bread. Meaning to say, so it doesn't. He should not say vayechulu, right? Because when you make kiddush on bread, you'll first make vayechulu, then hamaitzi, then the bracha, right? Mekadesh Shabbos. But in this case, you already made the bracha hamaitzi, so the vayechulu.
Right. So you skip straight to the bracha part, none of the preceding.
So hamaitzi lechem and aretz. Forgot to eat. I'm about to eat. I didn't make kiddush. Baruch atah Hashem asher kiddishanu mekadesh Shabbos. Eat, and then after you can say vayechul Hashemayim v'aretz v'chol tzavam. You say that part.
Yeah, after you take a bite.
After you've eaten, yeah, you take a bite, and then you say vayechul. V'achar kach yechal, and after that he should eat. And if he remembers after he ate a little bit. Bein she'ein lo yayin v'omer b'irchas asher kitchon al pas v'ein ksheyesh lo yayin mekadesh al yayin k'shechayz yolech es pas ein tzarich levarich shenis hamaitzi. But in either case, when he goes back, right? Let's say he eats a little bit, and now whether he doesn't have wine, or he and he has to make the kiddush on the bread, or he has wine and he goes ahead and makes kiddush on wine, he does not have to make a hamaitzi again. Rather, it's all part of the same suda. He doesn't have to make a meitzi again. Yeichal techila, he should eat. I see Chaim is on. So, you know what? Let's just finish. We have one last small Mishna Berura. So you should eat a little bit first. So you shouldn't have a bracha for nothing. And after that, he should stop and make havdalah. So we're talking about by havdalah. So he shouldn't just make havdalah in between the bracha hamaitzi and eating, but rather he should take a bite so he doesn't make a bracha in vain, and then go ahead and make havdalah on wine or beer or whatever you can make havdalah on. Then see what Magen Avram writes in Reis Samachtes that you don't even have to stop where you're holding, but rather finish and make havdalah after, because havdalah is only an obligation from the sages. All right. Good morning,
Shalom aleichem, shalom aleichem.
Aleichem shalom. And now
we're going to go through some juicy, saucy topics today.
Yeah, let me.
I want to hold your